social impact mean?
Yeah.
Does that have something to do with social media or?
So social impact, a really like base example is Uber is a social impact company, right? Like not everyone could get a cab before, but they were like, now everyone can get a cab. I mean, everyone who has a cell phone, there's like whole other components to that. But that's social impact, right? Anything that sort of impacts what was and what can be. So we try and look at the world and we try and look at all of the systematic sort of oppressions, and we say like, all right, how can we impact the food industry? How can we impact the clothing industry? How can we impact the student loan industry? How can we impact education? So anything that can create impact, but also make the person creating the impact some money, because that's kind of necessary to live.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not like a martyr, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That's really amazing. Really cool. I've never heard of that before, so that's super interesting to me.
Yeah, it's a hot button word right now, for better or for worse. I like that people are thinking about impact. I also know that a lot of companies are thinking about impact because they know it'll sell more product.
Well, yeah, the bottom line, you know, you have to, it is for profit. So that is something that they need to look at. That's really cool. What an interesting avenue that this new generation, a new time, that new jobs are getting created and new thought processes. So
Yeah, I
your
think new
fellowship.
thought processes is like the key, right? Tom's also is a social impact. Any of those, like, you give to us, we give to them.
Right, like the
Yeah.
one-for-one business model, which is really incredible. So tell us, how did you start on your journey to be an actor, writer, educator, storyteller?
Yeah, so when I was a little kid, the like honest but true answer is, as a little kid, I really didn't like myself. So by pretending to be other people, I found like a lot of freedom. And then I saw John Leguizamo on Broadway, which was like, you know, he was like a Colombian guy like me. And I saw myself in him, and I was like, oh my God, there is a place for me to share my voice. I didn't know what that meant exactly, but I knew I wanted to share my voice. And that was forever ago, and I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna be an actor. I kind of made up my mind. I did like performing arts high school in New York. I was that kid. You know, the whole like fame school thing.
Amazing.
And then it was like always acting and writing and poetry and things like that. And I'd say my life really changed towards storytelling, and understanding that my job is to facilitate story and not just act, not like be the best or look the best or sound the best. In a pretty weird way, it's like a long story short is I took a girl to Big Sur. We did a bunch of mushrooms. We got all our stuff stolen while we were on mushrooms. We found it all in the dark on these mushrooms, and it was the first time in my life I knew I had something to say, which is such a profound moment for any human, to know that you have something to say. And I made this declaration that I wanted to share it, and I was presented this opportunity, and I won this competition, and then I won another competition, and then I was teaching, and you know, 3-4 years later, you know, I'm working for the WWE and the UNHCR and refugees and traveling all over the world telling stories.
Wow. So what competitions exactly? Were they writing competitions?
It was a storytelling competition.
So take us through that process. Would you get up on stage and tell a story?
So you know The Moth? So yeah, I won The Moth a couple times, which is cool.
Tell us what your subjects were, how people can look up your award-winning Moth performances.
It's all on the Google. You know, you can like just Google my name and you'll find something.
That thing I've never heard of.
Yeah. The Google. You put my name in, and some sort of story will come up.
Okay.
What are the stories that won? One of them was about this. When I was 13 years old or 14 years old, I went to this camp, and one of my counselors, we went to this trip to Florida to go to all the theme parks. And this counselor, who I thought was like a god, but you know, in hindsight, you're like, oh, you're just an 18-year-old kid who couldn't get a better summer job. He did a little bet with all of the 13, 14-year-olds, and he said, whoever can steal the most stuff will win a prize at the end. And so he had all of these 13, 14-year-olds stealing from these theme parks.
Oh.
Which is wild. Someone got caught, and basically, you know, I take all of these true stories and put some sort of life lesson and awakening. So that was one I won for. Another one was the Big Sur moment. And then also my time in college experimenting with what it meant to be an artist. And do you know the 27-year-old club?
No.
Like
don't.
Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain,
yes.
Amy Winehouse, how like as a kid I wanted to be an artist good enough to do that, you know, and when I made it past 27, I was like, oh my God, I might not be that good, you know, and my whole, how do I have to shift my mind about what it means to an artist? Yeah.
That's incredible. So you won these awards, and then where did that lead you after that?
Oh God, word of mouth. I don't know. I don't know that I feel like any email or any phone call I've ever, anytime I've tried to get something, it never worked. You know, like I'm probably 0 for 150 or 1,000 in trying to get something. But anytime I just kind of sat back, someone called me, or an email came, or I saw this, or, you know, Jenny told me this, or Serena told me this. So every cool event and experience and company I've ever been with has been word of mouth. And I'm still kind of, I guess all of the hyphens is so interesting because I'm still defining what all this is to me. It's still defining itself. It's still birthing itself. I am such a work in progress with this craft, with this. All I know is that I love story and I understand it in a really profound way, and I'm okay knowing that and claiming that. And it gets me to have incredible conversations with people all over the world. It's the most powerful force on the planet, right? Story, true personal story. And we all deserve opportunities to tell our story and to have our story be heard. And I'm just really grateful that I get to provide and create that space.
Absolutely. You mentioned you do work with the UN and also with WWE.
Yeah.
Those are vastly different.
Yeah. They
organizations.
don't get in many sentences together.
Right. Tell us a little bit about your work with each.
So the WWE, I go in and the WWE is as popular as it's ever been. And I can honestly say that before I started working with them, I had my judgments. But they are ballerinas meet like high art meet clowning. They're meet incredible athletes. They're incredible. So we go in and we run these workshops about like, what does it mean to tell a story? Physically, energetically, right before you even open your mouth, how do you tell a story? How do you tell a story with your whole body? How can you challenge yourself to tell richer stories? Because of their growth and their expansion and they're sort of all over the world now, they're challenging their talent to come up and tell better, more powerful stories as characters and as people.
That's amazing.
So there's that. And then I run workshops with refugees. So sometimes it'll be a room full of refugees where we'll share personal stories. Sometimes it'll be like 10 refugees, 10 locals from a community. This is what I've done in Berlin, for example, or Sweden, and 10 refugees, 10 locals. And over 3 days' time, I'll guide them to this place where we get to share stories. And you realize that these people who had judgments and thoughts about the other, all of a sudden, they melt. And they're like, oh, you suffer like I suffer. You want, you desire. Obviously, you only leave home because a boat is safer than where you came from. Obviously, you only, try and survive traveling in that way because you have to. And these personal stories really break down those boundaries. And all of a sudden, an empty chair that's like, I talk about the empty chair a lot, and specifically with refugees. With refugees, if we have, it's happening now in this country, right? We don't want people coming in. We don't have enough. We live from that I don't have enough mentality, but we do have enough, right? We do have enough to cooperate and to share. And so all of a sudden the empty chair doesn't become a thing I have to hold on to, but a thing I get to share. Yeah.
So is the philosophy there is an empty chair here and we could have someone fill it?
Yeah.
As opposed to maybe there's something in human nature where we're like, no, I like it to be empty. I want a little space. I'd rather have no one there as opposed to.
Well, we're saving things, right? That's in our nature. We save for worst case scenarios. We don't live from abundance. We don't live from this best case scenario. I would say most people don't. I can't speak for everyone. I know that I constantly have to remind myself of it because I also find myself in that place. But if I give this chair away to you, then I don't have an empty chair, right? Like if I feed you, then then I have less food for myself. And instead of trusting that like another chair will arrive, another meal will come, another opportunity to give, to have, to receive, all of that will come. This empty chair model is like also just something I think about as an artist. As a storyteller, is like I want to be an empty chair, is what I say, which means I want to be a place for you to rest if you need rest. When I'm teaching, when I'm speaking to you, when I'm acting, I try not to like pre-plan it. If you need to rest, then I'm an empty chair for you to rest. If you need to stand, then I'm an empty chair for you to stand. I just want to like, or be water. Like, do you need to be quenched? Do you need whatever? But yeah, that's what we try and get. That's what I try and get through storytelling.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Sorry, we have to cut. I was holding that in for so long.
Get it out.
Frog. I'm gonna go back and say it's really beautiful once my voice comes back.
Yeah. You need a lozenge?
After I'm doing one more after
Hmm.
you. I love that story. I'm sorry, I'm not sick. I just got super dry.
Yeah. Take your time. I'm chilling.
Okay, let's test my voice. Okay, I feel like it's back.
You good?
Okay, yep. Wow, that was really beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Thanks.
So, have there been any... Wow, that's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Have there been any obstacles on your path or journey that has kind of gotten in your way, made you, question your journey? And how, if there were, how did you get past it?
Yeah. I want to be honest and just say my mind. My mind is my obstacle.
I think for many people.
Yeah, my mind is my obstacle. I will always be my worst enemy. I know that about myself. Like, I just know that about myself. I know that the mornings I wake up, like, wanting more, wondering why not this, seeing all the things I don't have versus the things I do have is easily my biggest obstacle. I know my serious states of, like, depression I've existed in, and this what's next mentality that I think comes from being an artist or freelance or maybe even the age that we live in of social media. Like, it's always like, what's next, what's to come, what's to come, what's to come. And then it's sort of never ending, right? It's like, you're like this junkie for things, but they never somehow provide the thing.
Right.
The feeling of peace, which for me is like the feeling that I want. So if that's my obstacle, is my mind, how I got over it or how I continue to get over it is to say it out loud. Meditation, sort of the work I do, prayer is important for me. Dialogue, disconnecting, unplugging from looking at other people's lives and other people's feeds and sort of scrolling my own feed. Checking in with myself. My mind is easily my biggest obstacle. Lately, what's been really nice is community. I'm like in love with my community. I'm in love with the people in my life, and I love to tell them how wonderful they are. This is the season of definitely that. I believe in seasons also. I believe that you aren't always supposed to be like happy, go get 'em. I think there are the seasons of living in the obstacle and not trying to fix it, but just understanding that like you're in it. And that in that, if you can be in it and not run away from it, something beautiful can sort of come out of that. Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. So what have been some of your favorite experiences to date? You have so many different venues where you spend your time and your talent. Are there a few that really stick out to you as really wonderful, life-changing, or mind-altering experiences?
Gosh, mind-altering experiences
Who knows?
so huge. Mind-altering experiences.
Or just perception shift, or...
Yeah, man, so many. Teachers. I have a lot of good teachers. Every once in a while, I'll ask life for a teacher. you know, a person who can come into my life and and I can be humble enough to look to them as a teacher. I think that's important. And I've had so many. I'm going to sort of backtrack to fast forward and to say, like, you know, any experience that's been really nice for me also probably hasn't happened in this country. That might not be true. So many. Big Sur. Every time I go to Big Sur, I have a magical, mind-altering, with or without drugs, experience. Because I think that's the most beautiful place on the planet. I spent my summer in France alone this summer, and that was really nice. All I did was read and eat bread. And also, that's not like full happiness, right? There were moments where I was in that, like, questioning my life. What am I doing? Like, can I afford this? Why am I doing this? Why do I deserve this? Why am I reading a book, right? You know, like, there were moments where it wasn't so peaceful, but you get to sort of check in and just return to that moment. I think the biggest one is I get to hear people say things they've never said out loud. So my practice is a little selfish in the fact that I share stories with people. And one of the free writes I always do with any community, it can be a group of lawyers, it can be a Fortune 500 company, it can be, you know, refugees or homeless youth. I always ask, what do you know? Right, and so they do a free write about what they know. Right, what I know for sure is, and because I believe we don't create many opportunities to talk about what we know. And often we talk about what we think we know, but not like what we know. And the moment I always return to, and I think about a lot, is a young woman took my workshop and she wrote, she had 5 minutes to write, and all she wrote was, "What I know for sure is that I woke up today." And I thought that was so amazing, because sometimes that's all we know. Sometimes that's like all we got, is that I woke up today. I don't know much more than that. And I thought that was really profound, and I've carried that with me for years.
And to know that that's just okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. That goes back to, like, what's your obstacle? Your obstacle is thinking that sometimes you have to fucking save the world, when sometimes you just have to wake up. And that's okay. And just fucking put on a record and sit with yourself, you know, and, like, be grumpy. That's okay, right? You leave yourself alone.
Give yourself permission to just be, to just be.
To just be.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So if you could think back to your life, whether it's career advice, life advice, what are some of the best words of advice that you've received?
Two things. One is leave yourself alone. And I don't know if someone said it or I said it or whatever you believe in said it, but it is a practice worth practicing. Leave yourself alone. Like, you don't have to drink that juice and take that workshop and go to that place. Like, you don't have to be better than you are right now. There's a lot of peace in that. And then the other one is that the success you seek is really just connection. And that, like, really blew my mind. That really did a lot for me. The success that you seek is really just connection. And I can't speak for everybody, but for myself, and I think many people I know, the success we seek is really just connection.
I think that'll resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in this digital age
Oof.
of
Oof.
social media. And
We think we're connected, but
right. We really want a true connection.
yeah,
That's really
a double click is not the
Right,
same as
right.
like a hug.
Right, right. So if someone were to come to you today and ask for advice to just get to where you are, you're a storyteller, you're an actor, you're an author, all this incredible work you do, what advice would you give to someone who's looking to follow in your footsteps?
I was reading a poem this morning, and he said, "My heart doesn't pay my rent." And I love this poet. I think he's a genius. He's a great writer. But I disagreed with him. My heart pays my rent. My heart pays my mortgage. My heart, like, at some point, I didn't have I couldn't pretend to be someone else anymore. I couldn't try and get it right anymore. I just had to do it. I had to be myself, and it took tremendous courage, and it's not easy. And so I'd say, like, do the thing you love. Be be your fucking self. It's so hard. It's so worth it. Right? Let your life shape itself as it's supposed to, not in some other person's idea of success or some other image of success or some other resume. Like, even if you love someone and you love their book and you love their bio, know that you get to write your own book and your own bio. You know, that's their map. Like, it's great you're reading their memoir, but like, write your own memoir, live your own memoir. You know, so live your own memoir. That's what I'd say. Which means you got to live it. You got to like go out. You got to be courageous. You got to fall. You got to battle your mind. You got to like let people go. You got to say sorry. You know, you got to just do it. Yeah.
Those are incredible words that I think are going to uplift a lot of people. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing your story.
Super grateful. Thanks.
You can binge watch all of the episodes at writingthewaves.tv.com and also on the EverTalk app on Apple TV and Roku. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks.